Thank you. We'll begin with the roll.
Mr. Vanyo,
Here.
Mrs. Sherling. Here. Mr. Pollock.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mr. Grinberg.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Whalen.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Otto.
Here.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Thorsted.
Here.
Mr. Olson. Mr. Broadchog.
Second item, the minutes from previous meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
That's the truth.
Order of agenda, I'd like to insert right 3A, if you will, just acknowledgements. I guess some happy moments here through the vote and all of that. And so 3A would just be some acknowledgement messaging. With that, I'd ask for approval of the order of agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Acknowledgements? Maybe I'll turn over to the mayor.
Well, we have a couple of people leaving the board, so when that happens, Delray and I have always had great success with chippers in Washington. So for Nancy Otto, we'd like to give her chippers and a tragedy mask because everybody's crying because she's leaving. And for Ken Pollock, we'd like to do the same. And then for Tom Dawson, what we'd like to do is also give him chippers because the Business Coalition did such a fantastic job on the vote on the sales tax, and I think the whole board deserves a round of applause for all the work done on all that. And we gave you a smiley face, not a clown.
And I'd like to join in that and acknowledge Tom and the work of the Business Task Force. A tremendous job in getting the word out. And with 5 years going by without a major flood, it's easy to become complacent. And so I think the reminders that came through the work of the Business Leaders Task Force was tremendous. Also, just a comment or two with Nancy and Ken. Nancy, you've been with this project as long as I have and a few others. And we certainly appreciate all of your support over the years. Good questions that you've asked and comments, and you certainly will be missed. Thank you for your years of service. Ken Pollock, you've kind of had a go-around and absence and back again, and so you've had your time here. One thing I always appreciated with Commissioner Pollock is he's never afraid to ask questions, and I think that's what we need is to keep everyone on their toes in terms of making sure that we're doing the right thing, and so those questioning moments have been appreciated. They aren't taken in any other way. So thank you for your years of service, not only with the Diversion Authority Board, but the 12 years of service with the county. With that, we'll move into the management PMC report.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Just a quick overview of our major accomplishments in the previous month. As mentioned, we had our voters approve our sales tax extension, so that's obviously big news for us and a major accomplishment. We had some of our leaders here, the two mayors, Mr. Pepcorn and the chairman, go to Washington here in October also to meet with OMB. We are continuing our outreach with the state of Minnesota. I'll talk about that as one of our initiatives for next month also, but even in the light of the denial of the permit, we continue to reach out to them at every level that we can to try to come to some arrangement that will accommodate all parties. As you recall, we've shortlisted 4 P3 proponents, and we've initiated contact with them. They're on our electronic document management system now, so our communications with them have been formally established. And with that, we continue to work on the RFP documents that are scheduled to be issued in December. We've drafted the 2017 Diversion Authority cash budget, and we gave a initial look of that to the Finance Committee yesterday. So our plan is to come back here probably the first meeting in December and formally present the proposed 2017 cash budget. Land acquisition is going to be on this list for the next 3 years, but I like to put it up here because it's such an important part of delivering this project. But we're on phase 1 right now. I've got a few slides later on in the presentation about some of the specifics of what we're doing with land acquisition. And we've initiated our conceptual design working with the I-29 roadways over the southern embankment. And continue to work with USACE on the southern embankment and wild rice structures also. Ty is going to talk about in-town construction a little bit later, and obviously that's something we've been working on all summer and continued this last month in October. For November, specifically with the Minnesota DNR, we've proposed a working group with their technical people. We've asked them to consider formally establishing this working group to see what issues can we come to agreement on now. So that's an initiative that we'll hit hard in November and continue to reach out to the DNR. The 2017 legislative season is coming up on us pretty soon. We're beginning to plan for that also, both here statewide as well as in Washington. We have got a small army of people over in the program office developing the RFP documents. Again, we're kind of racing to a deadline that we've set for mid-December to publish these, and so there's a lot of activity going on with getting these P3 requests for proposal documents ready for the street. I mentioned, again, we'll come to you with our final 2017 Diversion Authority budget in the first meeting in December, so we'll be continuing to work with the Finance Committee and members from the committee to finalize that. I mentioned phase 1 land acquisition once. I'll mention it again. This is we're getting the appraisals in now. We should be getting offers out early next year for most of the parcels in phase 1. And there's about 90 of them that we need to acquire.
Excuse me, identify phase 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to show a map here in just a little bit, Mr. Pollack, that'll show you what phase 1 consists of. I think it's next slide or so over. Again, we're beginning to wrap up the construction activities for the season on the in-town levies, and we plan to advertise for Oxbow home demolitions in November. So we're going to begin that work and continue with that work moving forward. So, land management update. Just a quick snapshot of where we are with property acquisition and what we've done here in the last month or so. We focused on getting all the surveys done for the phase 1 parcels, and now we're very focused on getting the appraisals done so that we can begin putting offers out to the landowners based on the appraisals that we have. We actually did close on 2 parcels in the staging area, same owner, but they were the organic farmland parcels, about 320 acres. So that was they came to us, we came to an agreement, and so we're very happy to report that we've closed on that. Other opportunistic acquisitions where the 2 parties can make a deal right now, we're looking for those opportunities everywhere. There are some, the phase 1 limits are pretty well established. We're working to refine phase 2 and phase 3 work limits so that we can determine which parcels we need to establish. The Corps has come to us and requested that through the watershed we help get land rights for long-term monitoring. So there's about 400 parcels required for that, for the federal permit. We're beginning to work on those also. We've closed on 8 more Oxbow properties here in the last month or so, and we've had the purchase agreements for Case Plaza and Shakey's Pizza finalized. An ongoing effort that will go into next year and well into next year probably is figuring out how do we value the flowage easements in the staging area. This is pretty groundbreaking work, actually, trying to determine what is the impact to mainly agricultural property for an event that might happen once a decade and last for maybe a week or 2. So it's not easy. We've got some experts that we brought in to help us with that, but that's one of the major initiatives in the land acquisition work that we're doing also. So, where's phase one? The map is essentially a line drawing of the diversion channel. The northern or upstream end near Argusville all the way to the outlet is the bulk of phase one. So we're starting with land acquisitions on the on the downstream end of the project and moving upstream. So again, from the outlet, moving upstream, the little gold and yellow boxes that you see there are the parcels in phase one. We're also acquiring parcels where the major bridge crossings are at too. So you see the other two clusters of parcels there around Horace and up there just out off of just north of West Fargo. So that's phase one. Phase two begins moving upstream or south to about the West Fargo area, and then phase three is the balance of that. So our goal is to have the phase one parcels acquired by the end of next year. If we're able to do that, then there should be no interruption with getting the P3 contract signed and giving them an immediate notice to proceed, with the restriction that their initial work has got to be in the downstream or northern end of the project. Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. There was some conversation that perhaps some of that could be narrowed. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Could you tell me where that was at?
So we're looking at both phase two and phase three for opportunities to bring the channel width in or jigger it here and there in order to minimize impacts. So we continue to look at that, and again, we'll make our final determination on those parcels when we have that engineering work completed.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. This is always the highlight of the presentation for me. Ty gets to come over and tell you what we're doing on construction, and I think we've got some really good news this week too. Thanks, Ty.
Thanks, Randy. Good afternoon. It's my highlight too. This weather couldn't have been better for us this fall, and it's really paid off well. And so everybody, thank you for your rain dances or anti-rain dances and helping us continue the warm weather. I understand we're going to keep it up through Thanksgiving, and that's really just about all the time we need to get everything wrapped up for the year that we wanted. So I'm very happy to report that. First project update today, A1A3, which is the 4th Street Pump Station. The generator building is underway, and we are expecting the contractor to work through the winter. This is the one project where we do expect winter work, probably all winter long. We finalized the schedule adjustment with the board's approval of a change order for this project last month. This was the tail end of the dealing with the deficiency concerns in the box culvert and the delays associated with that. That gives the contractor until almost middle of July 2017 for substantial completion. That's acceptable to us, that's acceptable to the city, and we don't have any concerns with that. And with that schedule reset, we do expect that contractor to perform well ahead of that within the time that they now have. The A2 pump station on 2nd Street, nearly done with working punch list items. This project is moving into final completion and contract closeout next month. I don't expect to report on this one again unless the board has any questions or wants any follow-up on this. This project has done very well. It is performing. It has been performing since July, and now it's just the typical closeout the project punch list type things that we're taking care of. The F1S project was declared substantially complete, or there was a substantial completion inspection earlier this week, and we do expect to provide them with the substantial completion certificate as soon as all the admin and final T's are crossed and I's are dotted this week or next. They are starting that punch list work. The generator will not be installed until next year. That is a coordination item with the City Hall project, so there's no concern or problems there. It's just as the City Hall unfolds, this project needs to wait before it can proceed with the generator. It was always scheduled for completion in final completion of June of 2017, though. and that's to take care of growing in grass and flood wall staining next year during the warm weather. The F1N project, currently scheduling the opening of 2nd Street is scheduled for November 23rd. 2nd Street is done on the southern project, but you can see this is the same picture from last month. It just happens to show the work the best. That is the portion of 2nd Street that is still closed. That is going very well, and we don't currently anticipate any problems with getting that opened on November 23rd. That is the contractor's new required date for that. And again, with the good weather, then we don't see any problems with that. All the other major work items are complete, flood wall staining and other finishing touches next year, and this project still has final completion scheduled for July of 2017. The El Zegel Phase 2 levee, substantially complete near the end of last month. Minor punch list items remain, grass grow in, no issues here. Michelson levee extension, same thing. This was actually substantially complete in September. We were expecting to close this one to reach final completion this year. We did last month approve, the board approved a change order that included pushing the final completion date out on this to June, just to make sure that we get adequate grass growth before final completion. And this is the one that I'm most pleased to talk about. This is the levee on the Park East Department site. Last construction update, I did report that we had some schedule concerns. The contractor had not been making the progress that we wanted them to, and we would be watching that very closely. We held their feet to the fire. The contractor stepped up very well and started upping their game a little bit. And with the good weather, we no longer have any concerns. The levee has reached full height, and the contractor started spreading topsoil on the levee yesterday, and so we do not have any concerns with reaching substantial completion this month. And again, this project was always scheduled for completion, final completion next year after enough time to grow in grass. So again, I don't expect to give any major report on any of these next month, probably just a little bit of a closeout status as well as the 4th Street Pump Station, unless there is anything that the board would like to see more of, and then I'd be happy to oblige. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ty.
For Terry, just a quick note. She asked us to mention that, of course, with the change of administration in Washington, some of the familiar faces that we've come to know and love up there with OMB and the Secretary of the Army's office are going to be changing. So with that in mind, we might want to consider when the next trip to Washington would be appropriate to meet the new faces, and that probably is not going to be until February or March. But Terry asked me to mention that today.
Very good.
Okay.
John, legal?
Mr. Chair and members of the authority, before John offers the legal report, we have no administrative report this afternoon, but an error was noticed in your packet right before I came down to your meeting, and that is that the additional items considered at yesterday's Finance Committee meeting on task order amendments for Ernst & Young and for CH2M for the period of November 25 through December 16 were omitted from the packet. I have the Finance Committee handouts, the exact handouts that were in the packet from yesterday. I'm asking that that be considered as an item 9D, 9 Delta, and I'm going to hand this out for you this afternoon, and then we'll walk through that as we did for the Finance Committee yesterday. But apologize for the error. John's got a report here, and we'll come back under the Finance Committee and walk through these amendments that were considered yesterday. Thank you.
Very good. And for those that weren't part of the Finance Committee meeting, if you want to quickly just look at it here through the course of our agenda items, you'll note that it's basically a month extension on a couple of the contracts, and we'll address it as 9D. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A number of items going on with the various legal teams. The first update that I have is in respect to the finance legal team. We're currently working through more detail in the finance plan with respect to the actual structuring of the different bond issues. We had a discussion yesterday before the Finance Committee about giving an update to the Diversion Authority Board about the current finance plan, and then perhaps having the Diversion Authority approve the finance plan. So we'll be working with Kent, your fiscal agent, and working through that presentation, and then we're working on more of the behind the curtain of the financial plan, of the actual structuring of the different bond issues and the allocation of funds. The second issue, I think Randy had touched upon it in the P3 procurement. There's a lot of activities currently going on with the P3. We're working through the project agreement, the ITP, and assisting with the technical requirements. Those are the three components that will make up the RFP. And at the next meeting, I'll have a little bit more of an overview about the process moving forward with the RFP process. As Randy had indicated, we're intending to issue that at your December 16th meeting. That, however, does not end the process. There's an additional process that will take place next year during the months of January through August, which will culminate in financial or commercial close at the end of 2017 and financial close in 2018. So at your next meeting, I'll give you a brief overview of that process. There's currently no updates from the litigation team, and I can certainly answer any questions that you might have. I do have one item that is on the Finance Committee agenda, so I'll be back up with prior to Mike's presentation.
Any questions for John? Mark?
Instructions to proposers. It's a component of the RFP that when a proposer, one of the four shortlisted teams picks it up, it provides them instructions on how to respond to the technical requirements, what would be deemed appropriate and necessary as part of their bid, both from a technical perspective and a financial perspective.
Okay, thanks, John. Moving on to recommended contracting actions. Before Randy takes over, I want to draw your attention to 9B, Resolution of Contracting Actions. Finance Chairman Tony Grinberg and the Finance Committee covered these yesterday. Basically, when we're going through these contracting actions that you'll see today, they have followed the process that we will be asking the board to formally approve under 9B as a written document for basically the actions that we do take on contracts and all of that. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention that these have followed that process. Go ahead, Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just first, we normally give a quick snapshot of our annual budget. Here it is for 2016. Again, we have the $237 million that was originally budgeted for this year. We're probably going to have about $20 million on the balance of that by the time that this year ends, and that's including encumbrances, or cash balance will actually be much better than that by the end of this year. As I mentioned, we're going to come back in the next meeting with the 2017 proposed budget. With the Finance Committee's guidance, we've rebalanced and recategorized some of the different ways that we slot money in. I think it'll be easier to understand and a lot more conducive to for me explaining it, quite frankly. So. But I just wanted to, again, give you the snapshot of how we're looking for 2016 right now. I'm going to cover the professional services contracting actions that we're requesting today, and then Ty will cover the construction actions. The first one, all of these are for HMG, and the first one is for $128,703 change to their existing task order 7. For work that they have done on the Oxbow Park relocation, as well as for the Section 6F permit required to move that park. It also extends their work on this effort into March of 2017. Mr. Chairman, do you want me to take these one at a time and have action on them, or would you like me to go through them all?
Why don't you go through them, and we'll take action on all of them unless someone wishes to separated.
6A2 is work, is actually, excuse me, compensation to HMG for work that they've done on the hydraulic and hydrology modeling. A very important component of putting together our project to understand exactly what has to be built to meet certain standards under different flows. Very technical and specific work, and I have to congratulate Greg and his team for the work they've done on this. The next task order is for work on some in-town levy additional work that they've done, and a closeout adjustment to that work. Along with the H&H work that HMG has done, they're also preparing and have preparing, and I believe that we have submitted already the first CLOMAR to FEMA. So this is the conditional change in the FEMA maps due to the project that we give to FEMA early. They're going to give us comments back, and at some point these will be finalized. So we've asked them to continue that work through December of 2017 also. And then finally, HMG has been a very important part of our technical review team as we put together the P3 documents for the request for proposal. So we've added also to their scope to help us review and comment on what we're asking our P3 proponent to do. So that is the total of the change orders for them, $549,000.
Yeah, we'll handle the amendments here before we get into the change orders. Any questions on any of these?
Mr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Was this in the budget? You always ask the question, was it in the budget, not in the budget? Is this something that was anticipated to be in the budget? It's tasks that seem to be part of what we would do, so does this meet your litmus test?
Not sure it meets the full litmus test, but I'll let Randy respond, and I'll come back.
Mr. Mayor, the first 4 of these are in the budget for design services. The last one is in the budget for P3 procurement support. So yes, they are in the budget.
So to add to that, then the discussion we had at Finance Committee was, when will this start to take a deep dive from a fee standpoint, so that we're not into at some point we're going to have the scope defined, and we're going to be beyond having these additions, so we can move forward and actually start turning dirt. So, I mean, there's a fair amount of a watchful eye, I will say, with all these coming through with the Finance Committee.
So my question is, ultimately, when the Finance Committee has it worked out scope and what we do, this almost time would just come to this board that you've already looked at it and it just comes for our approval. We probably wouldn't have much questions as a board since the Finance Committee had already vetted it.
Yes and yes. I mean, I would hope that, the full board spends the time as well and asks questions and not just 100% rely on the Finance Committee. But I think a check and balance between the subcommittee and the full committee is appropriate. But clearly, as Randy's pointed out earlier, we've come quite a ways with a more simpler approach to following this from a budgetary standpoint. That one page and then all the reams of paper below it for all the detail of those that want it. But from a high level, as a new chair of finance, I'm very comfortable where we're at this point in time.
Well, it's just the next page you go to change orders, Randy, and a lot of times is that, Commissioner Greenberg, you've talked about having a contingency or a certain amount of funds set aside to take care of those change orders. So I don't know if I'll have to ask that question on the change orders, but anticipating in the project, there's a certain amount of contingency funds for changes, right?
In the program overall and assigned to the individual projects, we follow contingency also. So as I've mentioned before, we're running at about 5% over the original contract values. That's well within the contingency we planned for.
Sure. So then, to add to that, as we move forward, to the discussion previously, this is in the budget. As we move forward, when we get to a point where we don't have things in the budget, that's where that contingency kicks in, whether that's fees or actual changes in scope of work with contracts. And that number is right around
About $159 million for the program overall.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, my question is regarding 6A4, and I would just like you to explain a little bit more about the CLOMAR for 2nd Street, and then where you say it's additional support for the overall FM diversion project CLOMAR.
I'm going to ask Greg to come up here. He has an
It's my
interest in
understanding
this.
of that is Clomar has to deal with the floodplain issues.
Right.
And I know that for the overall diversion, I didn't think that you could submit that till the project was done, but I'm just curious as to what that's all about.
Thank you. My name is Greg Thielman. I'm with Houston Moore Group. I've been involved on a lot of the modeling floodplain side. It's kind of a two-part process with the Clomar. Typically with the project that you're proposing, you'll submit a conditional letter of map revision to FEMA beforehand, and they'll conditionally approve it so that you know that if you proceed that you'll meet their requirements going forward. So this scope is for completion of the overall project Clomar, but then also the 2nd Street downtown project, because of the encroachment into the floodplain, that also requires a Clomar for the southern portion of that. So there's kind of two parts to this. One is for the in-town levy portion and the other is for the overall project. And once you have that Clomar, then you know that if you proceed with construction, that you'll ultimately should get approval. So, thanks.
Any other questions? If not, there's 5 task orders here. We can take them collectively. The motion.
Move for approval.
The motion approved.
Second.
And a second. Further comments, questions? Take the roll, please.
Mr. Vanyo,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams, Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted. Mr. Bradshaw.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I passed out, before the meeting began, an authority work directive. And as you recall, we use these when we've got work that needs to be done immediately, and where we need to finalize the proposal from the worker or the contractor a little bit later.
Everyone should have this in front of them.
As part of the P3 RFP process, we'll be taking soil borings in order to give the proponents a better sense of the subsurface conditions across the project site, particularly around bridges. This work directive is for borings to be done in the next several days at 2 crossings. The reason we're asking for this to be approved now is because the right of entry that we currently hold at the 2 sites expires on November 25th. My apologies for the short notice. This work is going to get done either now or it's going to get done after we get a new right of entry. So there isn't any real difference in the price of getting it done. Again, it's part of the P3 work. It's in the budget. And I would ask that the board consider allowing this authority work directive to go forward.
And I might say that I think 95% of the time anyway, we do get these things out in the packet, but this one was not. So, and as you can read, it expires, as Randy indicated, November 25th. It's a reason why we, should act on it in this meeting. Otherwise, it's going to be in the future, I guess.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything as a question? Jim? Okay. Nothing further. We'll take the roll.
Mr. Vanyo,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted, Mr. Bradshaw.
Yes.
Okay, Ty.
Hello again. 5 construction change orders today. These first 3 on the screen right here for the A2 project, H2 project, and the I1 project. These are what we would call closeout change orders or balancing change orders. These projects are at completion, and while 2 of them will be finishing in the spring, there will be no more costs associated with this. So these are routine change orders that sort of balance the books. Particularly in the case of when there are unit rates and the actual quantities differ from the as-bid estimated quantities. Really nothing of note here other than maybe an explanation for A2. There's a significant negative number that takes out the decorative fence that was added to this project a couple of board meetings ago. And that's because this A2 project is so close to finishing, and that fence has a very long lead time. And so the project team elected to take that scope and actually add it to F1S instead, which is the south floodwall project. That will allow this project to close without anything hanging over its head. We have not yet proposed that in a change order for F1S, simply because the engineer is still finalizing some dimensions and requirements. So once that's added, once those are finalized, then this $36,000 or $37,000 will be added to F1S. In the meantime, the deduct for this decorative fence is exactly the amount that was added to this project a few board meetings ago, so this just zeroes this out. And then I did misspeak earlier when I said that it was a couple board meetings ago for the Michelson project that we extended the final completion. That request is actually in this change order right now. So not a big deal, I just wanted to correct myself. Any questions on these? Okay. F1S, this is a host of relatively small things. There is one item that I'd like to pick out, though, because I had been asked a question regarding the topsoil before the meeting started, and I wasn't able to quite answer the question fully before the meeting was called to order. So this project includes, or this change order includes a significant amount for the import of topsoil to the project site. And that is a result of the fact that so many unsuitable materials were found, either contaminated or containing bricks and glass and things that made that material not be usable for the project, that had to be taken away. This is to balance that, so that the project was designed on final grading accounting for a certain amount of material on site. That material is no longer available on site, so then this is the makeup. And regarding the cost, this topsoil, pricing for this is not the same as what we as a consumer would get when we go down to the landscaping supply store for our gardens. I am not qualified to say why it costs what it costs, other than the fact that topsoil has a pretty broad range of pricing based on where it's sourced, time of year, the quality, et cetera. The City of Fargo maintains a database of material pricing, and what they do is every time they get a bid, all those bid amounts go into this database. And so my understanding from the engineer of record is that the average price that the City of Fargo pays for topsoil is around $18, $19, $20 a cubic yard. This contractor that proposed the pricing that you see in this one has a bid price for F1N, which is the other project, considerably higher than that. So when this one came in with a loose cubic yard price of about $21, the engineer of record found that that was actually quite a bit lower than what he expected it to be, and challenged the price just a little bit, found it acceptable, and then recommended pressing ahead. So then the final note is you'll see that there's actually two topsoil unit rates in there, one for loose cubic yards and one for compacted cubic yards. The compacted cubic yardage is $28 some. That is just what it sounds, so it's topsoil brought to the site and actually compacted in place. That's the desired way for the engineer to measure that topsoil, but as you can imagine, it's taking the loose cubic yardage and compressing it, so you've actually got more material, hence the unit rate is more. So what I can tell you is that the engineer of record from HMG did review that unit rate pricing for the topsoil and found it within the range of what's acceptable for this project. So I hope that adequately answers the question that I wasn't quite able to finish earlier. The other one, 42F1N, this is the north floodwall project. Relatively small. Most of the cost here is with the 8-inch plaza concrete, and this is actually associated with a previous deduct. The F1S project changed concrete in the plaza area several change orders ago. That was a big deduct. F1N had a deduct, a change order or two back, that also had a deduct so that the concrete matched the other project. And then now that we're at this point, the engineer determined that that concrete actually needs to be slightly thicker than it was to handle additional vehicle traffic. And so this, the additional cost here simply makes the net deduct a little smaller. And this really should be not a big deal. It's just making sure that the concrete's right for the need. Are there, oh, and then I'm sorry, one more change. The amounts, the final amounts of the change orders, there were some administrative errors that we found today. So F1S, the actual amount that we're asking for approval is approximately $6,000 less than what's in your packet. And the actual amount that we're requesting for approval for F1N is about $500 less than what's shown in your packet. I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions for Ty? And with the adjustments, 6,000 less and 500 less, do we have a motion to approve the change orders?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further comments, questions? If not, we'll take the roll.
Mr. Vanyo,
Yes?
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Grenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Ms. Williams. Yes. Ms. Otto.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted. Mr. Bradshaw.
Thank you. And there's one more item. This is not actually a change order. In case you've not had a chance to study this yet, I'll give a very brief overview, and I'll be happy to go into more detail as the board wishes. We've not requested a motion like this before. The actual motion is asking for authority for the executive director to finalize a contractor claim and then award the subsequent change order. So on the El project, there was a construction deficiency that the contractor installed something too short, and the contractor and the city of Fargo and the engineer developed an alternate solution different from the original plans and specs. The increased cost to the contractor equates to $28,000 in contract price. And after putting that correction in place, the contractor then requested that in a change order, which we denied. And the reason for that essentially was the contractor, the reason for that is because the contractor had the ability to not make the mistake in the first place. The contractor then defaulted to the general conditions process for a claim. So this is very textbook, and there's no high emotion here. It's a business process. So when they don't like the engineer, or when the contractor does not like the owner's representative's decision, the contractor has a mechanism to make a claim directly to the owner. So they made that claim for $28,000 on the basis of an error in the plans. That claim went to the technical advisory group, who reviewed all the details and then found that half of the contractor's claim is appropriate. They found that the contractor still had responsibility for quality control that could have prevented the error in the first place. However, TAG acknowledged that there was an issue with the design plans that led the contractor to potentially make that mistake. So the TAG group recommends awarding a change order to this contractor for half of their claim amount, and that awarded amount then would be the $14,181 that you see there. With the processing, with the way that the admin that we have for processing claims and processing change orders, just makes it a little easier if instead of me asking for your decision on the claim today and then asking for a change order next board meeting, rather we would recommend that you give authority to the executive director to finalize the claim process and then sign the change order so that the contractor we can close the books on this with the contractor.
Go ahead, Ken.
Well, that sounds good, but who's going to go back to the engineers and ask for for the $14,000 that the mistake in the plans caused the owner to have to pay?
That's a very good question, and we have started that. Mr. Pollock, you had asked a similar question 2 board meetings ago. And so what we've initiated is a review of all of the projects, not just this one and not just the roof rebar from last time, but all of the change orders for all of the projects to determine what are the values associated with the in-town levy projects that are potentially contractor responsibility versus owner requested versus design issues. And that process will involve a review of design quality control, and with the ultimate goal of being able to report to the board what root causes we've identified and what proposed fixes between us and TAG and the engineer that we're going to take in the future to prevent those types of issues from happening again. That will also include a report of what is the responsibility for the engineer for those non-contractor, non-external problem type costs. We've just started that. That is going to take a little while, and I don't have an answer right now, but I wanted to let you know that that is something that we're working on, and I expect to report on that sometime in the future.
Okay. And to continue, this project, as most of them, I expect, has an inspector on the job that the authority is paying the engineering company to provide. And isn't this something that the inspector should catch as it's happening as well?
Sometimes, and they often do. This is not an item that would have been reasonable for the inspector to check.
I don't know. I mean, if the height is supposed to be here and it's here on that section, I mean,
and
that's something that even I could probably notice.
I agree, except for the fact that it was in an excavation that was benched way back, so there was really no reference. As they brought the grade up in order to put the road in place, that's when it became obvious, because you could see road grade coming up and then you can see an 8-inch differential. But when that road grade was, essentially stripped away, would have been very difficult for the inspector to eyeball that and be able to tell. The responsibility for quality control of the elevation of that foundation footing, or that foundation stem wall, was with the contractor, and that is the primary reason that the contractor is 50% responsible, even though there was an error in the plans that they claimed was the ultimate cause of their deficiency. Particularly with a flood wall, it's incumbent on the contractor to check all their vertical dimensions to ensure that they're going to hit the mark at the end of the day.
Well, I believe that I will support I will support the motion when it comes forward, but I know that do we refer to it as the executive director, will probably have a close eye of some of the comments that have taken place here, and I think that as an owner's representative, I have every expectation of the executive director to make sure that the authority is treated fairly. So with those comments, I'll make the motion to approve the settlement of the claim as it has been directed here.
Okay, so basically authorizing executive director to finalize this. In my understanding, with the maximum amount of $14,184?
That is the recommended action, yes.
Okay. Is that the motion?
That's the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Get that, Heather?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, we have a motion. Any further comments or questions? Take the roll, please.
Mr. Vanyo?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn? Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Wayland?
Yes.
Ms. Williams? Yes. Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted? Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Public outreach?
Mr. Chairman, I have Rocky.
Okay, very good.
Good afternoon. I'm Rocky Schneider with AE2S. You should have a one-pager on your handout here if you want to pull that up and play along. The first one is sales tax. I think we had a good discussion about that earlier. Congratulations to everybody on that. You know, it's nice part about elections is they're a good data point for those of us working on the project, and you know, all of you. You sort of see what your general support is, but as you break down the analysis some more, you see where you know you have support and where you don't, maybe where you need to work harder and where you're doing well. I think the Forum wrote a good article today, sort of that same vein, so it was good because that's what I was thinking to report on as well. Fargo sales tax passed with 66%. It was pretty much across the board. It was a little more popular in the south, but I think it passed in almost every precinct, and the ones that didn't, it was narrow. Cass County one was a little more diverse. In West Fargo, it did pass, I think, generally about a 56% if you looked across the city. You needed a 50% approval for that county one. But you start to get outside of that protected area, and you do see a wide gap of negative vote. And so, you know, we take that to heart and understand we need to get out there. I know we're working with Jason Benson and maybe going to the Township Association meeting, started to talk a little bit more. I know we've talked with Commissioner Sherling as well about the other county projects around the county and making sure the other areas know that there is money available for flood projects, and we did a newsletter article on it as well. That I think there's 28 projects that have been funded through the sales tax outside of the diversion project. And so some of that information was just, maybe that needs to get out there a little bit more and go out and talk and listen and with a lot of those communities. Another thing I just wanted to address on the sales tax, there was an article in the Wahpeton Daily News today, and we also saw this in Minnesota DNR's comments, that there's a worry that there's not a funding mechanism that's sufficient enough for the mitigation plans that we have or for the longevity that we have. And you know, considering the articles in the paper today, you know, we just passed a 68-year sales tax in Cass County and Fargo that's going to raise a lot of revenue that is going to be for this project, and that mitigation plan is part of this project and part of the cost estimate. And I just want to assure everybody that I think the intent is to follow through on that mitigation plan, and sales tax seems like a perfect referendum for that argument against that. And so I just wanted to point that out since I was up here. We've been very busy with, over the last month, a lot of questions from the public about the sales tax. A lot of, it's a complicated matter. The financial plan is very complicated. We did create that whiteboard video that's been increasingly popular on the website. We created an FAQ for the city and county to use on their website and ours as well. I think each of you had the handout. We did, since the last board meeting, I think there's about a dozen presentations that I know of that we've been a part of on our team, and I've heard of others do separate outreach. And so some of you have been involved in some of these meetings or set up these meetings with your exchange clubs or your Kiwanis groups, and we appreciate that. I think it was really interesting going to each of those because you get a lot of questions, and that feedback loop is really helpful for all of our efforts. So it's good. We don't get a lot of feedback sometimes, and we certainly did over the last month. These videos that we've been using, with the sort of modern media, some people like the paper takeaways, others like the non-intrusive where they can sit at home and watch a video and they don't have to come out to a public meeting. And in some ways it's a lot cheaper for us too. The videos can have long-lasting life, and it's sort of the cost of production, but then after that it's basically free to get that continued use. And so we've been thinking on those and talked to the outreach committee about what do we prioritize. There's a lot of different topics to talk about. One of the ones that we are going to be working on is why the project is where it is and how we came to this alternative. And then sort of all the little modifications that have been made. I think as Chairman Vanyo has said, this isn't plan A, this is plan D, and we've sort of massaged things along the way to try to, I think we heard earlier to Commissioner Sherling's question, that we're continuing to sort of jigger that design to try to avoid houses and things like that. And so this video we're going to work on helps with that. The Corps of Engineers is actually working on a handout this week as well that has that same explanation, because I think there's a lot of questions in that regard. We always continue to try to make the information more available to the public. With the changing media, for sure, we've been trying to work for that. But another item we've done, you've noticed out in the atrium, the sort of pull-up map banner. I'm on the Fargo Planning Commission, and I was sitting up there on last Tuesday night, and I noticed 3 different people come up to it, public just that walk up and down these halls all day. And they stopped and took a picture and stared at it for about 5 minutes, and I was kind of tickled on the inside that somebody cared that much. But it's interesting. So I think they do work, and so we've worked with getting them to. They're at the highway department at the county, and we're working on getting at the Cass County Courthouse and Annex as well. And we talked to Clay County and Moorhead at the outreach committee to get it there. We're also going to have one at the West Acres as well, and we're going to set up a little I call them a realtor stand, but with sort of a takeaway flyer with more information, and it's something that, you know, you kind of set it up and sort of forget about it, and hopefully the public gets an opportunity to look at it. So a couple things like that we're working on. We're also, you know, as you enter city halls, everywhere they have the little information stand with all this different city services or county services, and so we're going to work on a little flyer there and just distribute them once a quarter. You know, these simple things that you do that sort of the replay life is really successful on them. I think Randy mentioned this earlier, but I know the county and city are working on legislative open houses. We've been helping with some of the reporting requirements over the last year, and we've done a number of one-pagers for the DNR and the Corps, and so we're just going to compile a little information booklet that then can be utilized by board members coming up with the legislative session to help with that. You know, this last month has been a fun project for a lot of reasons, but we've had a lot of interest from the public, a tremendous increase in access to the website, both from Minnesota's actions, the sales tax, the Corps of Engineers actions, and so all the P3 activity. So it's been a lot of time of a lot of questions and a lot of efforts by a lot of people. So I just want to thank everybody for that. Thank everybody on my team for that as well. If there's any questions.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to add, thank you, Rocky, for that recap. I'd like to add that we did spend considerable time yesterday talking about the issue of why the alignment is where it is today. And, you know, I mean, there's some out there would like the public to believe that the only reason we're building this diversion is for development. And it goes far more than that, and it's not that at all. It's that's not the original intent. It's not in anything that I certainly ever voted for. But so we had a long talk about that yesterday, and I think we're going to work with Rocky and our whole group to try to make sure that we incorporate that message. And it goes to Mr. Chairman, your comments earlier, which Rocky just mentioned about, you know, we're not on. This isn't Plan A. You know, we've gone through several plans already, and I don't remember ever being the reason for the protection of our community was to be for development. And I think we need to do a better job of explaining that, and I think we're going to be working on that.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent idea, having a video like that to go through all of the various iterations. I want to thank Rocky. He's got a list of presentations, or the Outreach Committee did here from the October board meeting, and I don't know all of the people that were involved in doing these, although I suspect Rocky was probably the primary one for a lot of them. But for anyone involved in presentations like this and getting the message out, certainly want to express our thanks. I think the Outreach Committee is doing a banner job in terms of meeting the needs of the public outreach, whether it's information about voting or various alternatives. So thank you very much. Tom, comments? Business leader?
We obviously were very pleased with the campaign and the results of the election. But I have to say that, you know, at the top of the list of those who worked really hard on this were the Chamber and the Flint Group. So it took a lot of people to get this done, and it was very satisfying to be part of. Other than that, our committee is, of course, still in place, and we'll be meeting sometime in the near future. But right now, we're just waiting to see what we need to do next.
Good. And thanks once
Nice
again.
to see that Craig stayed up after 9 o'clock to get the results, but I don't know if it was the presidential he was worried about or our referendum.
Oh, I think he was more worried about the extension.
Thank you. Land management, Mary.
Thank you. We met yesterday, and in addition to having a good conversation regarding the recent property acquisitions, we spent quite a bit of time looking at a draft mitigation plan summary, which I think will be very well received. One of the things that I thought was interesting, I think a picture says 1,000 words, and there's one graphic there that shows a 10-year impact, you know, the 10-year, so it'd be once every 10-year impact of where the water would flow during that time frame for, maybe a week. And I thought it was interesting that the water doesn't even come close to Comstock, Minnesota, or Oxbow for that matter. That really doesn't happen until you start getting into a 25 or 50-year impact. So, I just personally found that to be a very informational piece, and they're going to work on it a little bit more. There's also looking at the impacts for the farmland mitigation and some of the details that they're going to be working on that, as well as the organic farmlands. So good conversation about that, and we'll look forward to sharing that more as it gets completed. Other than that, we had property acquisition update, which was already done earlier, unless Mark has anything to add to that. That concludes my report, unless anyone has questions.
I would like Mark to comment. I happened, before our Finance Committee meeting yesterday, I happened to sit in on, and you talked about contracting for demolition in Oxbow, and we saw that earlier on the screen. But I want the diversion board to understand how that's working, because I've had people come to me and say, what are you going to do with those homes? Are you going to just destroy them all? And gee, it'd be a waste if, if they were all just demolished. Your comments on that?
And I agree, and our Cass County Joint Board agrees that it would be a shame to waste the homes. The ones that can be moved, we want to see them be moved and reused. I think the city and the county and their various buyout programs has discovered over the years that it doesn't work very well for the city or the entity to try to sell and move houses. You don't get much value out of it, and I think the city has gotten to the point where they do demo contracts and leave it to the demo contractor to try to find a buyer to move the house and reuse it. And so that's the approach we'll be using. We've demoed a couple houses in Oxbow up to this point. One was taken down and one was moved, and we expect that some combination of that will happen in the future demos. We're probably going to be dividing up work over the next 6 months or a year in 3 demo packages. Actually, it'll be 4. We have one that's been awarded for a couple of homes outside of the immediate Oxbow city limits, but close in there, and that will happen here this fall. And then we're preparing for a bid for demo package on North Schnell, the north part in Oxbow. It makes some sense geographically to do them at the same time and have that be the first. And part of that will be a approach onto Highway 81 that would allow an easy move for houses during the winter, where there'll be access without bringing it through the community of Oxbow, so that homes could get moved out onto Highway 81 and get out of there. But the idea is to have enough time built in so that people that are aware of the homes can contact the demo contractor and arrange to move them. We have had a lot of interest in homes, as you said, you've been approached also, and we have that information available for the demo contractor. So if they're interested in making contacts on people that have approached us about buying a house, that information will be available. And we'll probably also be contacting folks that have called us about homes and let them know who the demo contractor is, so they make sure we get the communication going. So our plan is not to directly sell the houses to individuals to move, but to have a contract, but try to facilitate having the homes reused as part of it.
Right. I think that's clarifies it a lot, and I guess I would ask any board member who is approached about comments on those homes that simply it'll get that to Mark, or who can get it to the demolition contractor, and you know, they can take it from there. Likewise, for anyone who gets approached, you know, if you happen to know people that are simply called upon you as a board member as to opportunistic buyouts, those should probably go to Eric. If someone is saying, well, gee, we're going to be bought out, I'd like, you know, to start working on that now. I know I've got one I need to turn over to Eric, but so that board is aware that they have someone to approach if they're questioned on it. Okay, thank you. Tony, Finance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, are you ready? We'll go right to 9B.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Diversion Authority. In your packet, you should have received item 9B, which is a resolution that confirms the procedure for the approval of construction contracts, contracts for engineering services, including architectural and other professional services, and really sets forth and describes the process for change orders and amendments. I'm not going to go into the additional or the level of detail that I went over with the Finance Committee, but I'll give you a high-level overview. As you may recall, last month I handed out a draft resolution to both the Finance Committee and to this committee, and we spent the next month socializing that resolution with both staff and with the chairs of the Finance Committee and the chair of the Diversion Authority. And in sum, the resolution includes a lot of detail regarding the definitions of the different contract terminology that you'll be hearing as you move forward in this process and that you've already heard today. The contract also only applies to contracting actions that are by this entity. So this resolution does not apply to contracts that are undertaken by the Joint Board, the Cass County Joint Board, or the City of Fargo, or Cass County that may or may not be issuing a contract. Those separate member entities would have their own procedures. This resolution also does not cover the P3 procurement. P3 procurement in North Dakota is covered under a different statutory scheme. In general, the procedure is set forth is that the executive directors, the PMC, or the engineer of record would be responsible for initially bidding out the project. Those bids are then provided to the technical advisory group, which is a group of your local staff engineers who will make a recommendation, who will discuss it. Then that recommendation is forwarded by the executive directors to the Finance Committee, and then the Finance Committee would make a recommendation, and that recommendation is then forwarded on to the Diversion Authority. And it really encapsulates the procedures that we've been utilizing currently and further adds some authorities. There is, and I would direct your attention to one important section, which is section 5 on page 8, and this relates to change orders. As part of the process of executing change orders, there will likely arrive times when change is needed. Something happens on a project that they need to take immediate action to either mitigate damages, or there's a public safety issue. Excavation collapses and they need to change the contract to add extra fill, or because of some structural failure, the contractor needs to take additional action to mitigate damages. And so the resolution authorizes the co-executive directors to take appropriate action only in those circumstances, to authorize the work to go ahead and report back to the TAG, the Finance Committee, and then on to this board. And as part of the resolution, they would use their best faith efforts to contact both the chair of the Finance Committee and the chair of the Diversion Authority before they'd actually authorize that work. And that is only in those limited circumstances when it would be a threat to public safety, a health issue, or you're trying to mitigate damages. The resolution also goes through the procedure regarding change orders to construction contracts, which are very, very similar to the actual process of awarding contracts. And then it covers field orders, work change directives, and new task orders and amendments. And I can certainly answer any questions. I want to be respectful of your time, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. And the Finance Committee did recommend approval yesterday of the resolution.
Any questions? If not,
Move for approval.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
No further comments, questions? We'll take the roll.
Mr. Vanyo,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Dr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Gorstead, Mr. Bradshaw,
Yes.
So just an added comment, one of the points we had at Finance Committee yesterday was as well, we'll develop a flow chart that when we hire an executive director, and it's pretty clear to see what you have to do rather than go through, read a multi-page document on what the right procedure is. So we'll work on that as well to maybe make it a little simpler. With that, we have a request for some payments, 9C. Entertain any questions. It's payment to the Cass County Water Resources District and legal fees to Onstead Twishel and Springstead Financial Advisors.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval.
Second?
Motion and a second. Take the roll, please.
Mr. Vanyo,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn, Mr. Grinberg,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Gorstead, Mr. Bradshaw,
Yes.
Item 9D, Mr. Redlinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the authority again, and thank you for your consideration for adding this item as an item of new business to the end of your agenda. Before you are contracting amendments that were considered at yesterday's Finance Committee, 2 for the Cass Joint Board and 2 for the Diversion Authority on the CH2M agreement. I'll just briefly summarize those. Again, this is the identical information that was considered yesterday and approved by the Finance Committee for recommendation to you today. The first is Task Order 1, Amendment 9 for land acquisition management services, an extension of the performance period to December 16 for the Joint Board. Task Order 3, Amendment 1, Construction Management Oversight for the Cass Board, Joint Board, extending that performance period again from November 25 through December 16 of 2016. For the Diversion Authority Board, we need to do a similar action, and that is contained in Task Order 6, Amendment 1 for our management, technical, legislative, project delivery, and P3 work. That extends the performance period and then also adds the pro rata of the cost of that service between now and November 25 and December 16 of $497,000. There will be a successor agreement that will be before the Diversion Board at an upcoming meeting in December. You meet on December 1 and December 15. And at one of those meetings, we're going to be considering a new task order for an amendment for CH2M and Ernst & Young. And I'll summarize Ernst & Young here at the end. But we're working on terms and conditions for those master service agreements, and we're going to come back to you, the Finance Committee and to the Diversion Board with additional detail in the future. But just wanted to forecast that for you today. In addition, Task Order 7, Amendment Number 1 for the authority is a construction management extension as well, again, extending that period to December 16. The Ernst & Young Task Order Amendment is also contained in this packet and was considered and approved by the Finance Committee yesterday. Again, the same extension of period to December 16, but the addition of $150,000 in their scope for additional work. It is a very busy time with Ernst & Young. They have a lot of output, a lot of delivery right now for the authority. We believe in 2017, this work, much like Ashurst and others, will start to trail off pretty significantly. And one of the concepts we talked about at the Finance Committee yesterday was forecasting that out over the next several months so that the Authority Board is well aware of some of those expenditure patterns and what will happen at the end of 17 as we move towards financial close with our P3. So it is a task order that John Shockley and I spent a lot of time on with Ernst & Young, just making sure that that was necessary work. And the answer is that yes, it is. And it's something that we really feel is important to getting more milestones completed for our P3 process. And it's something that once, again, is completed, will really help us formulate the basis for that robust P3 that will be out, or in that P3 RFP that will be out in the street for our proposers to consider. So we wanted to answer any questions that you had about that, but just appreciate John's assistance with that. And again, we ask for your affirmative consideration of these items today. Thank you.
And Mike, can you just clarify, is that in this year's budget, or will we put that in the 2017 budget?
Correct.
17?
Yep, 17. That's correct.
Move to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. No further comments, questions? Take the roll.
Mr. Vanyo,
Yes.
Mr. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn, Mr. Grinberg,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Ms. Orsted, Mr. Brodchuk,
Yes.
We have one other item, Mike, CH2M, was there a?
Mr. Chair and members, if that motion also contained the CH2M task order amendment, just to clarify, there was the Ernst & Young and the CH2M. So as summarized, if that's okay for the,
That was mine.
for the record, if that's the motion. Okay, thank you. And again, thank you for your
Trying to help you all
consideration.
get to the end of the meeting.
Just a couple added comments, Mr. Chairman. We will be, Chairman and I will be in particular meeting with Randy and John and Mike, talk more about the 2017 budget and understand that better. The next Finance Committee meeting is going to be November 29th, 2 days before the full Diversion Authority meeting. And we'll also be getting a better feel for the P3 stipends that was presented 2 months ago by John. If you wanted to comment on that, I'd provided one or two. But just wanted to make note of those date changes. And
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Finance Chair. The stipend that I commented about in the P3 industry, it is very commonplace for during the RFP phase for a stipend to be paid to the unsuccessful proposers. The stipend is not a full reimbursement for all of the costs they incur. Rather, it is a small stipend to pay for some of the hard costs they incur during the procurement. And it also secures the intellectual property rights in the bid that they provide to you. So for example, in this procurement, we have 4 shortlisted teams. We would envision that during the procurement process, as they develop both their technical proposal and their financial proposal, they will likely incur $5 to $10 million, perhaps even more, in the development and response to bids. And so they do have a significant outlay of costs. And the P3 industry over the years has developed a stipend payment that would be paid to the teams that are unsuccessful. And in order to incur a number of things, you obtain their intellectual property rights, and also to give them some confidence that the hard costs that they're incurring, they'll at least get some reimbursement for it. We do have, and a couple prior Finance Committee meetings, I provided some examples of different projects from around the country on how much was paid for as a stipend. And also when we met with the different ratings companies in regard to the financial plan, they also emphasized the need to pay a stipend. It gives confidence to the bidders that it is a real project, that we're going to get to the financial close. I asked for a meeting between the 3 of us or 4 of us to have kind of a general question and answer session about what the stipend was, and to kind of get an idea of what information that we should be presenting to the Finance Committee and to the Diversion Authority Board regarding the stipend, and ultimately making a decision about how much that should be.
Okay. Moving on, any other business? Ken, I was going to call on you to maybe make the last comments. If you had any.
Well, I didn't want to miss this opportunity.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to take a couple minutes and recognize the efforts both of the elected people and appointed people who sit on this board, but also express appreciation for the immense amount of work that most of the people here in this room have put in, and also so many of the people that are on the staffs and are putting out the product that have helped us keep this project going. I really appreciate it, and I just didn't want to lose the opportunity to say thank you. And I especially want to say thank you to the citizens of both Fargo and Cass County for their positive affirmation of the sales tax extension that's been put forward. It really does add finality to the fact that this project is going to be completed and all of the pieces are in place. And so I just want to express my appreciation there as well. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Ken. Cass County changes December based upon the election, so it is Ken's last meeting. Nancy, I understand you will be here in December?
That's right.
So-
I'm on city council through the end of the year.
Want to save any comments for then?
That gives you time to buy me another box of chippers.
Okay.
We're on a budget.
Okay, and just as a reminder, I know it's been sent out, but the next board meeting is with the holidays and all that, and it's shifting. We've got 2 meetings in December, December 1st and the 15th. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.